So we're now done with the topics like the society and then the evolution of man, evolution of society, the definition of society. So now let's move on the different types of social group, or we call this one in sociology as social groups, society groups, I mean. So first one, let's try to compare different groups. What are the different characteristic of each group or social group, and how is it different with any other groups? Okay. So first one is we have the primary group. When you say primary group, they are characterized by intimacy, sympathetic understanding, and friendliness among the members. And then together with the second definition of primary group, it is also known as the small face-to-face structures where personalities fuse into common whole. Okay. The main keyword here when you say primary group, it pertains about the intimacy. Of course, when you say intimacy, it pertains about affection of each member of this group. So they always love it. Hindi lang sa love each other, but they care for each other. So therefore, some of examples of primary group considers the family relatives. So of course, for example, uh, kunwari nagkasakit ka, you have your own sickness, and you need to have a hospital assistance, di ba? And just so happen that you cannot carry yourself, of course, there is your family who will help you. Kahit walang kapera-pera, di ba, na pangbayad na sa hospital or any other problems that you may face, of course, maaasahan mo pa rin ng mga family members mo as much as possible. They would give financial support and even moral support. So when you say primary group, we are more contact. Okay. So most likely it pertains about our own family, but it does not only limit on the family, but as well as to our friends or close friends, di ba? So from that, we can say that in primary group, there is love or there is care for each member of the primary group. Now, on the other side, we have them on the secondary group, and it is defined as they tend to impose the patterns of conformity on their own members. When I say patterns, may rules and regulations tayo that we need to follow being part of this group. They serve to offset the prejudices or vested control of the immediate locality. So there is a hierarchy. So ibig sabihin may sinusunod tayong tao dahil maybe he was the leader or appointed as the one who will rule in our own society. And last but not least, this may be observed in the planning of business, labor, economic, political, and religious organizations. So here in secondary group, unlike in primary group, there is an intimacy. So, ibig sabihin, with or without the rules and regulation, we take care each other. So, ibig sabihin, hindi natin kailangan na pa ng isang rules or isang batas para mag-comply tayo or magtulungan tayo sa primary group yon. However, when we say secondary group naman, we are only together because we are mandated to do something. A very good example of this one is the working area. Maybe some of your students, pagdating ng araw, magkakaroon din kayo ng mga trabaho, di ba? And the secondary group that I'm pertaining is your workplace. And when say workplace, let us say naging ano ba? Let us say naging ano kayo, naging teacher din kayo, naging engineer kayo. Of course, while you enter the office, kailangan yung pumasok sa office. Hindi porket yun ang trabaho mo. But of course, as part of your duties and responsibilities on that office, kailangan mong mag-report. You need to kailangan mo makisama sa mga kasama mo kasi nga that's part of the rules and regulations based on the office. Pero it does not mean that there is an automatic intimacy between the members of the secondary group. So nandun lang kayo dahil yun nga, kailangan na nandun kayo. Another example for the students, di ba? Noon, we have our own face-to-face classes and you need to enter to each classroom for each subject, di ba? So therefore, napipilitan kang pumasok dahil hindi mo naman gusto mo or pwedeng hindi mo rin gusto, pero you're required to enter a class pag gusto mong makapasa sa isang subject. Of course, attendance is a must in terms of entering or coming in with different meetings from your own different subjects and then teachers, di ba? Another example here in secondary group, even though you're composed or together with a certain group, it doesn't mean that you know all of the groups. Okay? Kasi isang characteristic rin yan ng isang secondary group. Like for example, you enter the class. Maybe you have some of your friends there, but it does not mean that you all the members of the group. That is normal naman if most likely if you're a international student. Pero minsan if you're in a black section, the same students, the same classmates for all of the subjects, minsan nakikilala mo ng bawat isa, di ba? Pero hindi rin automatic 'yon na that is a primary group pag kilala mo na lahat ng members ng isang secondary group. Kasi nga, we have another element here of a primary group which is intimacy. When you say intimacy, halos nandiyan na lahat, di ba? You take care of each other, you love each other, you help each other, nagdadamayan kayo kung may problema kayo. So that is now intimacy. But in secondary group, pwede rin nakakilala mo yung tao, pero you do not care each other, di ba? You do not love each other and so on and so forth. So that is now the difference between primary group and then secondary group. Okay, so now let's move on the next slide. Next social group that we have the Gemeinschaft and then Gesellschaft. So these two social groups were introduced by a German psychologist named as Ferdinand Tönnies in 1889. So according to Tönnies, there are two types of society based from his own observation. Of course, psychologist si Ferdinand Tönnies is a psychologist and he tried to conduct a research based on his own observation on the different types of society. Even though he introduced a lot of social groups, but his main unique group that he created that was introduced on the different fields of not only in psychology, even in sociology. So first one muna, we have the Gemeinschaft. When you say Gemeinschaft, it is defined as a close communal relationship or community. Okay, so para siyang parehas rin with the primary group. It pertains about the family members and then the family relatives. Still, there is a intimacy. So yan nga, we have the second definition here is it is a community of intimate, private, and exclusive living and then familism. So meaning, yun pa rin, there is love, there is care for each of the member, and they live and work together and share a common language, traditions, and then customs which are not questioned. So meaning, everyone accepts the rules and regulations, whether it is written or unwritten rules man ito, amenable naman or lahat ng members ng Gemeinschaft natin agree and they are following the rules and regulations being practiced by the certain social group which is Gemeinschaft. Mamaya, I'll be giving an example in order for us to differentiate the difference between the Gemeinschaft and then Gesellschaft. So next muna ulit tayo, we have the Gesellschaft, and it is also defined. First one is we have the organized impersonal relationship or society. So therefore, so parang parehas din yan with the secondary group, or we have yung aggregates. If you could still remember our own discussion on the cluster of society, when you say aggregates, their own people there or members are only located on a certain area, but it does not mean that they know each other. So I think my example there was yung pagpipila sa jeepney line, di ba? Pagpila sa jeepney. So you are located on a certain area pero it does not mean that you know each other. So ang main purpose nyo lang for that, for being located on the same at the same time at the same place is there is a certain purpose, di ba? So the same with Gesellschaft. There is no impersonal relationship. There is no intimacy. So magkakasama lang kayo on a certain place at the same time. So still next, there is a division of labor, specialization, functional dependence, and solidarity or cohesion are achieved. So meaning, still it is more applicable in your own workplace or on your own working area. So for example, division of labor, di ba? You are on a factory. Gumagawa kayo ng sasakyan. Magkakakilala kayo siguro, all of the members on that factory, pero you have your own different roles based on your duties and responsibilities. Kung yung isa taga-lagay ng gulong, yung isa taga-lagay ng side mirror, yung isa naman taga-ayos ng mga electricity ng sasakyan. So, yun, ang ating mga parang example in terms of Gesellschaft. And last, the members are guided by the traditional. So, by traditional, rational will characterized by forethought and deliberation. So, meaning here, so let's have an example now of Gemeinschaft and then Gesellschaft for us to know about the difference about these two according to Ferdinand Tonis. So, si Ferdinand Tonis created an example regarding this one para malaman natin kung ano nga ba talaga ang difference ng two societies na to, known as the Gemeinschaft and then Gesellschaft. So for an example, for Gemeinschaft daw, according to Ferdinand Tonis, you're like a person who is living in the province or in a rural area. And when you say rural area, ano yung mga yan? So probinsya yan. So ibig sabihin, what are the different characteristics of a certain rural area? So first of all, if you go in the province, 'di ba? Most of the things that we could see are the environment, 'di ba? Magandang environment, mga taniman. There are rice fields, madaming mga puno. And if you can observe from the province, the houses are located away from each other. So, even though yung iba, merong magkakadikit na bahay, pero hindi lahat ng mga bahay on that certain area are located at the same place. But rather than some of the houses are located in the different areas. Okay? Yung iba, 1 kilometer away or 2 kilometers away, pero even that is the given fact that their houses are located from each other, if you're going to observe, halos yung mga members ng isang community from the province or from isang municipality man yan or barangay ay halos magkakakilala. Di ba? Like for example, kilala mo ba si ganito na taga doon? Ay oo, siya yung mga yon. Di ba? Halos lahat ng members dito in the Gemeinschaft, even though despite the fact that their houses are located far away, they are located not on the same place but rather malalayong lugar na nakalocate sila, yung mga members or different family members nila know each member of that community, which is true nga naman, 'di ba? So, alam naman natin sa probinsya medyo uso din ang chismisan. Kaya nga usong chismisan doon, halos magkakakilala sila. However, when you try to compare here in Gesellschaft, tingnan mo naman yung living in an urban area or urban community. So ano ang urban community? So it pertains now about the city. It pertains about yung syudad natin here. For example, here in Baguio City, di ba? So we are located in Baguio, and if you're going to observe the community here in Baguio, the characteristics here in Baguio, of course, madaming mga buildings, madaming mga boarding houses, and all of those things. Magkakatabi ang mga tao, even though meron ding mga squatters area tayo. So if you're going to observe here, people are located most likely almost the same as with the members of the Gesellschaft, di ba? Pag building yan, halos patong-patong lang kayo, magkakatabi-tabi kayo. But the only difference here in Gesellschaft with the Gemeinschaft, sorry, is that even though we are located or compact tayo with the same area, the same place, at the same time, hindi tayo magkakakilala. Di ba? Wala tayong pakialam sa bawat isa. Yung kapitbahay mo or yung kabilang boarding house mo, ang ingay-ingay, wala kang pakialam. Diba? Ikaw, maingay ka rin, wala rin silang pakialam. You're doing your own business and they're doing their own business. And no one cares about the business of everyone. What they care is their own self. Diba? So, yun ang Gesellschaft natin. Kasi nga, what is the main purpose of that? Remember, we are not relatives. We're not, we did not come from a certain uh, province na magkakapares ang tradition natin. But rather than, it is part of our job siguro. It is part of our job to stay here in Baguio City kasi nga, of course, may trabaho tayo sa Baguio and then we live in the province. Hindi naman pwede na araw-araw bimabiyahe tayo from our province going here in Baguio. So therefore, ang kailangan natin, we need to look for our own boarding house. So kailangan natin tong boarding house for us to live, for us to attend with our jobs, di ba? So yun ang difference now ng Gemeinschaft and then Gesellschaft. When you say Gemeinschaft, there is a communal relationship. And then when you say Gesellschaft, walang impersonal. So you're only located in a certain area, the same time, the same place, pero walang pakialamanan. So yun lang ang difference ng Gemeinschaft and then Gesellschaft. So next. Ay, bakit ayaw mag-move? Ayun. Okay, so next we have the in-group and then out-group. So first, in-group, it is defined as the individual identifies which gives on her sense of belonging, solidarity, camaraderie, spirits decor, and then a protective attitude towards the other members. Still, parang magkakaparehas pa rin yan with the primary group and then the Gemeinschaft, di ba? Alam mo, yan nga, sabi ko, example ko, we are in. So, ibig sabihin, you know to yourself that you represent everyone. So, therefore, para yang one for all for one. Okay? So, every member of in group is well aware that they need to create a good image not only for their own self, but for the whole group as well. So, parang family yan. Now, you try to compare, di ba? On a certain family, let us say, ang family name mo ay De La Cruz, di ba? And then you have an in-group na belongingness. So, ibig sabihin, if you're part of the De La Cruz, there are norms that you need to follow. There are rules and regulation depending yan kung ano ba ang culture ng family nyo. And most likely, it depends with our grandparents or our parents. Like for example, siguro sabihin na natin si parents mo ay, let us say, parents mo military, di ba? And they are into discipline. So therefore, as part of the culture of your family is to have discipline. Pero, pinapakita mo naman as the son or the daughter is you are acting without a discipline. So para kang barbaric na tao. You do not know how to follow the rules and regulations. So therefore, lagi kang pinapagalitan ng family mo. Why? Because you are not showing yourself as part of the family. Pero, if you know how to be part of that family, you know how to follow the culture of that family, that is part of the in-group. Okay, so when you say in-group then kasi, we are helping a member of our group for that member to be aware on the principles of the group. Kasi nga, sabi natin, the action of the member could represent the action of the group. So, ibig sabihin, as much as possible, wag sana tayong gumawa ng isang bagay na hindi nasasang-ayon sa prinsipyo ng ating group. Okay? Medyo mahirap tong in-group na to kasi nga alam naman natin that people have different attitudes. Mag-asawa nga, magkakaiba ng attitudes. Magkakapatid, di ba? Pero in some point, meron kasing family who are still practicing a certain principle wherein all of the members are trying to do. Okay. Now next, so we have the out group here. It is a group which an individual is sufficient contact with us to be aware of the existence, but he or she is prone to criticize. Okay, so when you say out-group naman dito, ito na yung sinasabi ko sa iyo kanina na you want to be separated from the principle of a certain group. So meaning, meron pa ring isang group, pero the group that when we're saying out-group, it is somewhat dispersed. Paano yon? Kung sa in-group natin kanina, a certain family here is practicing all of the principles, are doing all of the principles, all of the culture of their family. However, for the group, out-group na ito, still may family pa rin na nagpa-practice ng isang culture, pero nung nagkaroon na ng mga anak, nagkaroon ng mga daughters itong isang family na to, and they have different attitudes, they have different cultures that they have adapted outside their own family, doon na nagkakaroon ng difference on the culture, or meron ng conflict between the belief or the culture of the family, and then with the belief of that member of the family. So ibig sabihin, parang gusto niya nang kumalas sa culture ng isang family. And it follows with other members as well. Like for example, si sibling number 1, ang gusto niya freedom. So the family is practicing discipline, but the first one likes to have more freedom. Party people si sibling number 1. Sibling number 2 naman, ang gusto niya lagi siyang independent dapat. He doesn't want to be he doesn't want to be scolded by his or her own parents. So gusto niya laging nasa labas and so on and so forth. So ibig sabihin, here in out group, each member now is trying to be wanted to remove outside of their own group. Kaya nga she is prone to criticize. Kasi nga if you're the parents, you're practicing discipline and you know to yourself that your daughters or children are not following discipline, lagi nyo silang kinikriticize, di ba? Tama ba? Oh, ganyan na naman suot mo. Hindi ka man lang magpo or opo. Gabi ka na naman umuwi. Di ba? All of those things are part of the characteristics of an out group. Okay? However, when you say in group na naman, all of the members are practicing. Ganoon lang kadali ang differentiation ng in-group and then out-group. Okay? So, next, we have the next slide. So next, we have the formal organization and then informal group. So first one, formal organization, it is defined. So they are social structures which are deliberately organized for the attainment of specific goals which meet their most fundamental need. Very good example of formal organization ay mga business or mga companies natin that are operating in different fields of areas. Like for example, sa schools natin. So we have a certain mission, di ba? We have a certain social structure. So meron tayong president, meron tayong mga vice president for finance, vice president for the administration, vice president for academic affairs, and then sa baba nun, there are different organizations as well, like for offices, like for example, the School of Teacher Education or the SIHTM, ano pang mga SNS, the School of Nursing, and all of those things. So therefore, the main concept here of formal organization, so from the word itself, formal siya. When you say formal, they are abiding or following different guidelines and rules and regulations. So ibig sabihin, they cannot operate without a certain formal mandate. Ibig sabihin, may mission vision sila. They're not only created na wala lang, gusto lang namin mag-create ng isang organization dahil gusto namin. So hindi siya ganun. So it was created in order to meet a certain goal. And like for example nga, if the formal organization is a school, of course, ang goal ng school natin is to make graduates who are globally competitive. They have the proper skills. They are well prepared in the future when they have their own jobs. And the same with hospitals. Ano ba ang mission or goal ng isang hospital? Of course, as much as possible to cure, to treat all of the patients who need medical assistance, di ba? For the churches naman, it is for to create a certain for churches, it gives us the words of God, share the words of God, ano pa, the faith to God, to give us our own communication between us and the God. When you say churches, I am not only pertaining with a Roman Catholic as well as the Protestant. Meron din tayong, we have the Islam, di ba? And all other things na mga examples. We also have industrial establishments, like for example, mga factory natin. So yun ang mga formal organization natin. And on a general perspective, when you say formal organization, it is ito yung pinakamalaking organization, or it pertains about the whole organization. See? So next is we have the informal groups. When you say informal groups, they are within the structure of formal organization. Okay? And they may introduce new and unofficial goals into the group, redefine the channels of communications and interactions, or create new procedures to get job done. Okay, so please take note that when you say informal groups, these are the groups within the formal organization. Okay, please take note of that one. Informal groups are the groups within the formal organization. Okay, so example natin. Ano ba ang example ng informal groups natin? So formal organization, I will be using the University of Baguio pa rin, ha? So the formal organization here is we have the University of Baguio as a whole. And ano ba ang mga informal groups sa University of Baguio? Madami. We have different departments, we have different offices. Like for example, Stella, di ba? Sabi ko, School of Nursing, School of Natural Science, School of Information Technology. So those now are the different informal groups. And some of those informal groups suggest some procedures that needs to be developed or needs to be modified in order to make the job faster. Okay, and like for example, we have the office of MIS, or I think ano bang meaning ng MIS na pala, Management Information System. So they are responsible for the management of portal natin. So before, sabi nila we are using the AIMS. Pero sa tingin ng MIS na why not we need to create our own system in order to make the transaction faster. So gumawa sila ng Teams or the portal now. So if you're a first year student, I do not know pag alam yung old na portal namin noon, it's known as the AIMS. Ang ginagamit nyo kasi ngayon, we have the Teams, and medyo naguguluhan pa rin kasi nga we are still on the transition. So some of the data are still on the AIMS that aren't transferred yet on the Teams or the portal. So yun ang problem naman. But anyway, still those are part of the changes being made within an organization. So isang malaking hakbang yan sa pagpalit ng system ng University of Baguio, and it was suggested by a certain informal group known as the MIS. Of course, hindi lang MIS naman ang nagpalit dyan. They have consulted different offices as well. So yun ang informal groups natin and formal organization. Please take note that when you say informal groups, these are the groups within the formal organization. And it does not only it's not only limited with the departments or offices. Pwede ring mga students or student organizations. So they also have the power to give their own will kung ano ang nararamdaman nila as a students. Like for example, we have the SSC, diba? The Supreme Council of, or this is the highest organization being organized by the students on a certain school. So minsan, these SSC are creating some changes or suggestions to the schools or to the university para naman mabigyan ng pansin itong mga pangangailangan ng mga students natin. Okay? So the same with hospitals, ganun din ang practice niyan. There are different departments and even in all formal organizations. Okay? Okay, so next is we have the race and ethnicity. So very simple lang naman ang difference between these two social groups. Actually, it's not a social group, but way of classifying our society. Sorry. First one is we have the race. First is we have the when say race, it is the classification of humans according to physical characteristic transmitted at birth to a group of people. And it is as well defined as it is a biological concept is determined on the basis of group's bloodline. So, ibig sabihin, when you say race, it is more on biological. It is based on physical characteristic of a certain person that made that person as a citizen or a national. Like for example, pwedeng tawag sa iyo ay mga Aryan race. Ang tawag sa iyo ay Aryan race if you have white skin, di ba? Hindi naman pwede that you're an Aryan race and then ang meron kay black skin. 'Di ba? Hindi rin pwede na tawag sa iyo ay isang black African if ang kulay ng skin mo ay white, 'di ba? And then yung mga Filipino din, medyo mahirap kasi pag Filipino, 'di ba? They have a brown skin when you say Filipinos or mga people who are located on the Southeast Asian nations, 'di ba? They have a brown skin tone, all of those things. And of course, it is still based on the bloodline. If your parents are Filipinos and therefore you're a Filipino, pag Philam ka, of course, halo ka ng Filipino and then an American. So that is race. You are being classified based on your own physical characteristics and your own bloodline. However, when you say ethnicity naman, the culturally defined differences between ethnic group and then society, it involves a sharing of culture and then certain traits. So let's now compare. Kanina, when you say race, you're being classified based from your own physical characteristics. Maitim ka, maputi ka, or brown ang skin mo, black ang hair mo. So you have blue eyes, you have a matangos ang ilong or pango yung ilong. So those are the race. You're being classified based on your physical characteristics. However, in ethnicity, you're being classified based on the culture that you're practicing. Okay? So, sasabihin nilang Pilipino ka dahil mahilig ka sa lechon. Mga ganong bagay. Sabihin natin, Pilipino ka dahil September pa lang, pinapatunog mo na ang Christmas songs. Yung iba, in America, sabi nila, you can only try to play Christmas songs in December. Diba? Pero ang mga Pilipino, masyadong maaga. Basta September 1, papasok September 1, nako, labas na ang Christmas tree, labas na ang decorations natin, and then magpatugtog ng Jose Marichan, di ba? All of those things. So, what are the culture that is somewhat unique to a certain individual that made the individual being part of that social group? So, meaning yan, when you say ethnicity here, you're being classified on a certain social group based on the culture that you're practicing. Like for example, here in Cordillera, ano ba ang isang unique na pinapractice natin here in Cordillera that made us Cordilleran? Okay? In some parts of Cordillera, like for example in Kalinga, even then in Mountain Province, they're practicing the pagta. When you say pagta again, sabi ko nga, it is an agreement between disputes or like for example, there are two families who fought to each other and then ang nangyari sa kanila ay hindi sila mag-settle. So ang ginagawa nila, they're calling the elders of the community and then they will talk with each other, all of those things hanggang as much as possible magkabati sila without the use of lupong tagapamayapa from the barangay or without the use of or without the intervention of police officers. So ganun ang race natin and then ethnicity. Okay, so next tayo. Still the same pa rin. Race and ethnicity pa rin tayo. We have the ethnic group here. When you say ethnic group, it refers to the group with common cultural background. So, sabi ko nga kanina, you are part of the group if you're practicing the culture of the group. The theory of definition of the situation in the ethnic group, relations implies that what is important is not the physical characteristics that identify a group, but how such relationship determine the feeling of belonging to each other. So meaning, even though kahit man ano ang kulay mo, pango man ng ilong mo, matangos man ang ilong mo, maitim ka man, maputi ka man, whatsoever physical characteristics that you are part of the group as long as you know how to be part of the group. Gets nyo? You are part of the group as long as you know how to become part of the group. So meaning of that, alam mong makisama. Okay? You know how to practice the culture of the group. You know how to respect the culture of the group. Dapat sundin mo kung ano ang nasa culture natin, nasa culture ng isang group na yan. Okay? What is important here is the culture of the group or the practice of the group. So that is now an ethnic group. Okay? We are located to each other, but we disregard the physical appearance, but rather than we are united based on our culture, based on our own tradition. Now, here sa baba tayo, of course, the Philippine population is composed of Christian Malay. When you say Christian Malay, yan na yung mga ano natin. We are from Roman Catholic then, even in Protestant. So almost majority ay 91.5%, Muslim Malay, 4%, Chinese 1.5%, and other cultural minorities is only 3%. When say cultural minorities, example na yan dito sa Cordillera natin, we have the Ibaloys and then the Kankanaes. Meron tayong mga Kalanguya, yung mga yan. But when you say mga Ilocano, mga Pangasinense, they are now part of the Christian Malay. When you say Christian kasi, of course, Christianity was not automatic with the Philippines. It is a influence coming from, of course, coming from Spain, di ba? When they introduced Roman Catholicism here, Christianity na yan, and so on and so forth. Of course, with the Muslim Malay, actually this population given to us was, I think this is around 2008 pa. Muslim Malay, medyo malaki na ngayon. They are now the second one. I think they are around 10 to 20% na. And for the Christian Malay naman, we have mga 80 pa rin or ano, 70% plus for Muslim Malay, and it is around 10 to 20%. But anyway, the first one is that we have the Christian Malay, and then secondly is we have the Muslim Malay. For the Chinese, Chinese medyo mahirap nang i-track ang ating Chinese families kasi nga madami na talagang Chinese rin, and most likely when we say kahit ang apelyido mo ay Chinese surnames, like for example C, D, di ba? Yung mga yan, still they are considered full-blooded Filipinos na. Okay? So yan ang race natin and then ethnicity.